You have chosen the dyed and stabilized elm burl. So let's make a handle. This elm really stinks to work with. I mean, this is one nasty smelling wood now. Got my bandsaw fixed, so now I can cut these out and not waste any extra material, which is actually a pretty big deal for me because I like to use these little pieces down here in other knives. You know, I can cut that off and use it as a bolster on another knife. So I definitely don't like to waste those pieces of material. Here's a little nugget for you though. I do like to take the knife and run it in and leave a little sliver of material on the edge. That makes it easier for me to cut out on the bandsaw, and if there's any washed out areas along the outside edge where this isn't perfectly flat, because it's really easy to roll these over when you're making them flat, the edge might not be perfectly flat, but this will be perfectly smooth. So if you take the knife in just a little bit from the edge and you cut that off, then you're probably going to get a nice even spot. Okay, that was a lot of rambling. Let's go over and cut these out on the bandsaw. We are ready to rock and roll. Let's put some glue out here. That should be enough. Epoxy, I should say. Check that out. It's time to shape a handle. This guy's all glued up. We'll cut the pins off and get started. That's a lot of sheaths. Holy moly. That's a lot of sheaths. Let's get to cutting. I'm just gonna cut all of these out. Got my trusty razor knife here. Just separate them up into smaller pieces first. Oh, fun. We need to attach all of the belt loops first. Perfect. We've got all of these belt loops sewn on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the welts and I'm going to glue those in to the back panel all the way around. So this is going to get glue here and I'm going to glue this welt in. Now that we've got all of the welts glued on, we're going to go ahead and glue this side of the welt, glue the back face of the front, and glue the fronts on. Just make sure that the belt loop is sewn on first before you glue the front panel on, because you won't have access to this inside anymore. Now we've got all of the front panels glued on. This is where we're at. After I glued on the front panels, I cleaned up the edges, made sure everything was nice and crisp between all three layers, And now that the edge is nice and crisp, I can take and run my stitching groove all the way around. You want to crispen up all your edges and get everything right, because your stitch line will run on the finished outside edge. So if this is wonky at all, then your stitch line will be wonky. So get this nice and straight and true, and then when you run your stitch line, it'll give you a perfect place for your stitches, and it'll be nice and straight and true. Now it's time to space out the stitches. Here's a good tip on this one. I like to start at the very tip where the two lines where the confluence of the two lines is. That's going to put a stitch right at the V. That's really what you want. Just run that up. That's going to give you your spacing on your stitches. So what happens is, by starting the stitch wheel right in the tip, your stitch will go from here to the tip and then back up, rather than having an odd one here and then one over here and then having your stitch cross over. It'll go all the way down to the tip and then back up. Ooh, look at those. Now we got them all stitched together, but they're still rough. They are still rough. I'd like to take the edge beveler here, one at a time, and I'm going to bevel all of the edges. You know, clean them up. Nice, long, even pass. That gives me a uniform bevel. Cleans up the edge. Nice. I'll do that on the front and the back. Go. I'll also do the top. Look at that. Acid etched 1/16 inch steel with stabilized elm burl. This, my friends, is my favorite knife that we built together. I think the combination of the dark steel, the thinness of the grips, the earthy tones of the wood, everything came together to just be perfect for me. You know, this knife fits my hand really well. I like everything about this knife, and the corresponding leather sheath that we made for it. Everything about this is just, it hits all my fancy buttons. Really enjoy this. If I have to rate them, this is my number one. But all of our tastes vary. I made a lot of knives in this series. You guys helped me make a lot of choices for these knives in the series. So I definitely encourage you to go back to the first video, choose some of the alternate endings, and go see the other knives that we made. This one's really cool. This one got my vote. Let's see what your vote is. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. Cheers, guys.